Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Seems like Paramount Plus must have heard my specific objections last week to Star Trek Discovery not being available on their platform.
Watching us then.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. They were watching us and they heard us no. If only that was the case. I guess we were a very minor voice adding to the huge chorus of backlash following the story that we had from last week where essentially it wasn't going to be available in international markets. Lo and behold, they must have been reading the forums or whatever, and they decided to, to set. Whatever the PR press release said, they always use the lovely fuzzy words about how they listen to their customers and their subscribers and looking to provide the best experience possible, et cetera, et cetera. So they've moved up the release of the show to now. So I logged in the other day and there's the first 2 episodes and they'll all be released on time. And it's like, why didn't you just do that to begin with? I will say that they threw in
manpower.
That's right. I will say they threw in a sweetener by saying that, and by the way, you can have 3 months at half price. It makes you wonder, like, won't dwell on it too much because we covered it last week, but it seems to me like sort of a faux pas, a very obvious faux pas. Like, you don't upset, the people that you're trying to attract to the platform, particularly as that show is like a flagship show. It's like the show that attracts everyone in to watch everything else. And it seems, and I know that Star Trek has been used as a franchise on CBS All Access in America, which is the equivalent, which is now turned into Paramount Plus. So you'd think they'd want to, massage that to the best of their ability to maximize subscriber growth in a market that is getting extremely cluttered with services, and it's getting harder and harder to stand out.
Yeah, well, the exciting thing I think is that, with on demand, it is on demand. If the fans demand it, if you make a bad decision and then the fans demand it, you can change your mind instantly and turn it into probably an advantage. So, well, I think the right thing's being done.
Yeah, I was just about to say though, surely this should be easy because it's all streaming off a computer server somewhere. So can't they just flick a switch? Like, it's not like they don't have prints to ship to a cinema or something.
I suspect that the time it takes is actually for the lawyers to agree it's the right thing to do.
Indeed. But long story short, happy times. For fans of the show. All right, let's move on to our main topic for today. Coronavirus. It's been the mainstay for the last 2 years, and obviously there's been a bit more movement in the last couple of days. Just going to start with South Australia because my home state. Currently your home state, and you're living there, so get the local intel on the ground kind of thing. Obviously there was the big news of the borders reopening on earlier, it was on the Tuesday I think it was, and to people from Victoria, New South Wales and ACT predominantly, because that's where the COVID outbreaks have been. There's I was thinking of this the other day, like in terms of flying, like if I come over, it's only going to be driving still, because there was that story of 3 flights being listed as exposure sites because there were people on there that tested positive, and it brought up shadows of last year where if I was going to go traveling anywhere and come back to Adelaide, for instance, for a visit, that I didn't want to get. I actually wasn't as concerned about the virus as being caught by these public health orders and the restrictions in terms of travel, and I didn't want to be trapped somewhere unnecessarily. I guess it just makes for interesting sort of times where we keep echoing things haven't changed, this thing's still going, and people need to pay attention that they could get caught up in something if there happens to be a case or 2 around. And given the fact that I think a lot of people in South Australia are probably feeling a bit anxious, given there hasn't been any COVID there predominantly since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, look, that's a really good point. I think, doesn't matter how brave you are in these situations. Effectively, South Australia is now kind of opening up its borders. It's not really easy, but the good news is, Ben, is if you come over, you'll be able to get home real easy. It's getting in that's still the issue. But, I mean, it is something I think everyone, Western Australia, I guess at some stage will have to do this too. You open up and COVID comes in, and we've already seen in South Australia how quickly it comes in. And I guess we're trying to control the rate that it spreads and look after people. But yeah, for a lot of people, it is an unnerving time. Even if you're double vaxxed, a lot of us, as it turns out, know immunocompromised people. And that's going to make Christmas a very edgy and tense time, I think, for some. So there's not too many options. If you can't afford to catch coronavirus, or you simply don't want to, then you're going to have to isolate. And even if you are double vaxxed, you're always running a risk there of not only for yourself, but potentially passing it on to someone who can't be vaxxed. So there are a lot of considerations. When you don't have coronavirus and you're opening up to the world. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it all goes for us.
I guess South Australia is blazing a path through this for all of the non-COVID states in Australia, given that they're the first state that hasn't had any significant outbreak that's opening up in this manner. So I'm sure that, Queensland, Northern Territory, Western Australia and Tasmania are watching to see how it goes, because they'll have similar plans to open up in the coming weeks, because the idea, of course, is that everyone wants to be open for Christmas and not, well, Western Australia won't be, but the rest do. So because I think there was an imperative to get that done.
Absolutely. And look, if you want to take heart, I've been looking and seeing what's happening in Sydney and Melbourne, and the high vaccination rates there really are working. So I'm quite confident that even though it is an anxious time and we don't know how it'll go, I'm confident that overall things will be fine here.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of anxiety-producing situations when it comes to the pandemic, obviously the threat of new variants is something that has always been hanging over this whole thing, and I guess Delta is a realization of that, given that it's effectively replaced the original strain of the virus and has become the predominant version that's around the place. And there's always the threat that while the virus is still circulating, that although mutations happen all the time, but we're talking about the ones that are of concern, the ones that could potentially cause more damage, cause more issues for people in this pandemic. And there was the news this week of this new Omicron variant, I think only named today, I think, as far as the news was concerned. They were just calling it the new variant a few days ago. First detected in South Africa, and important to point out, it may not have started there. It could have started somewhere else. It was just that was the place that it was first detected. And so now there's a kind of a couple of weeks wait now while the scientists sort of do their testing on the virus, this particular variant, I should say, to see if it's more transmissible, does it cause more issues, etc.
Yeah, well, let's hope that it's, still largely susceptible to a vaccine or respond. We can respond with a vaccine. I think that's the biggest concern at this point, because it'd be horrible if we were to have to reset the whole COVID situation and go back to square one, which, the media is certainly beating up on the point that that's a possibility. But as you say, until we get more information in, it's probably best just not to worry about it.
Yeah, well, the one thing, this is a whole other topic anyway, the way the media sensationalizes all of this. They definitely went down that rabbit hole straight away when this sort of popped up. But I will say, though, that on a variety of news coverage that I have been watching, a lot of the experts, and I'm sure most of them are, that they've had interviewed on these shows have actually gone to the trouble of pointing out, look, we're concerned, but like don't sort of buy the farm or or anything just yet. It's we got to see what it is, and stressing the point that other variants have come out before and haven't really had an impact. Even if you were to look at Delta, which has caused a lot more problems, it hasn't sort of put a dent in the vaccine process in terms of getting them out and ensuring that that's going to get derailed. So and even though Delta was worse than the original strain, so there is at least a little bit of coverage around the fact that people, the experts, etc., are saying, look, let's wait and see what this is about before we start panicking. But having said that, a number of countries have already, closed their borders to South Africa already. Probably the cat's out of the bag already anyway. I mean, if they've detected it now, it's probably been circulating for a while anyway. So whether or not those travel bans will do much to stem things remains to be seen. But you can tell that sort of immediate reaction that people have, that countries have too, of, oh no, there's no way we're going to allow this to, become an issue.
Oh, that's right. But, it is one of those things. I think there's also now we need to have a long, hard think about having booster shots, maybe, depending on the circumstances with this new strain. But, maybe those booster shots should be going to nations where this is spreading, because if it gets into a population anywhere in the world, eventually it will get its way over to the rest of us. Closing borders, as we've seen in the past, doesn't really stop these things.
Indeed. I was just going to say too, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if I misheard this when I was doing just some reading on mRNA vaccines, that because I guess it's so codified and specifically targeted, because they're using the RNA to target a specific version of the virus or etc., that although there would still be a lot of effort required to do a lot more testing and to make sure that it's safe, etc., that the actual creation of a variation on the mRNA vaccine that we have isn't actually too complicated, just in terms of actually coming up with it. It's just more that especially because it's not as if it's a brand new virus, it's a variation on a virus that we already have a vaccine on, and I actually thought that was an encouraging thing. It seems like it almost sounded like if you use computer virus terms, just a few changes of lines of code in there, and then they can redeploy accordingly, which to me seems like a real advancement in terms of vaccine technology. Just being able to just get in there and target, is really encouraging.
Well, they certainly do. So basically what the mRNA code is for creating antibodies basically against the spike portion. So that's what the mRNA code's for. But, I guess obviously what people are concerned about, if coronavirus was to mutate markedly around its spike, constituency or its shape effectively, then what that would mean is that the current vaccines wouldn't be effective. Now, that means, sure, we could very quickly, because we know the coronavirus well, we could very quickly reprogram the mRNA, but the thing that I think everyone's really afraid of is that the vaccinations that we already have might become useless if the virus mutates in a certain way. But I think that horse is bolted now, and we're going to be living with coronavirus for a long time, one way or another.
Indeed. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there, and interesting few weeks. Might return to it in a couple of weeks' time once it's the research has come in, and it's sort of one way or the other we know whether it's just another mutation or whether it's something we should be a bit more concerned about.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Until we know more, just keep on and carry on.
Absolutely. All right. So don't forget our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices. And we greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.